As soon as he went on stage, Mahi's eyes went towards Ranvir. Ranvir's eyes were also fixed on him. As soon as Mahi looked at him, a smile appeared on Ranvir's lips. He winked at Mahi and Mahi immediately removed her eyes from him. After a while, the stage light dimmed, then gradually the light became bright. Mahi's backside was in front of everyone at that time. She was standing with her face facing the other side. And she had her long hair in front. Slowly, the Bollywood song started playing. Then Mahi started performing her dance on that music. At every step of Mahi, Ranvir's heart was beating fast. Today, Ranvir was completely immersed in Mahi's dance. He was the same Ranvir Roy Kapoor who was known as the heartless person among people. But today, his heart was getting out of control at every move of Mahi. He was only feeling the presence of Mahi at that moment. He was not realizing the world around him. Suddenly, the song changed and a Punjabi spicy DJ song started playing. Mahi, who was dancing very seriously until now, came in a mood of fun. And to support her, Ruhi also came on stage. Where Mahi and Ruhi were enjoying performing on stage, Sarika and everyone else were also enjoying dancing on the stage. Those who were hesitating to dance were also enjoying and dancing. Seeing Mahi dancing like this, a lovely smile came on Ranvir's face. Mahi and Ruhi both got off the stage and went ahead to go to Sarika. Then Mahi's leg got stuck in the carpet. Before Mahi fell, someone's strong arms held her. Mahi had closed her eyes out of fear. And the one who had held Mahi was Vedant. Vedant was standing there and talking to someone. And as soon as his eyes fell on Mahi, he saved Mahi from falling, showing his strength. At this time, Vedant's one hand was on Mahi's delicate waist. And the other hand was behind Mahi's head. Ranvir was looking at Vedant's hand with burning eyes at this time, which was on Mahi's waist. He wanted to go and break Vedant's hand right now. Mahi slowly opened her eyes. Vedant's face was in front of her, who was looking at Mahi's innocent face. Rudra had understood well by seeing Ranvir so angry at this time, that now Ranvir's anger can break at any time. And he didn't want any kind of drama to be created in front of so many people. He quickly went to Mahi and asked her directly. Mahi, are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere? Mahi nodded her head and looked at Vedant, who was still looking at Mahi. Mahi smiled and thanked him, and left from there. Rudra said to Vedant, "It would be better, Vedant, that you leave from here right now." Vedant smiled and said, "Why? Why should I go?" Rudra said to him, "Look, Ranvir is very angry right now. And I don't want any kind of scene to be created here. That's why I am telling you to leave from here right now." Vedant looked at Ranvir, who was looking at him with his burning eyes. Vedant also didn't want any kind of drama to be created here, because his family didn't know anything about the enmity between Ranvir and Vedant, except Rudra. That's why he left from there. Mahi was coming to Sarika. That's when she met Ranvir's eyes. Ranvir's eyes were red with anger. As soon as he saw Mahi, Ranvir left from there. When Mahi saw him leaving from there, she started thinking, what happened to him? In the meantime, Sarika interrupted him and he started talking to her. Gradually, everyone's performance was over. And the music function was over. It was very late at night. And everyone was feeling very tired after dancing. So everyone went to their rooms to rest. Mahi also came to her room. It was dark in her room at that time. She felt a little weird. And she thought in her mind, I had turned on the light. Then why is it dark here? As soon as she wanted to go ahead and switch on, then someone held her hand. Before Mahi's scream came out, she shut Mahi's mouth. Mahi was getting scared now. But then that person turned on the light with his other hand. Now Mahi's eyes met Ranvir's eyes, who was looking at Mahi with his angry red eyes. Seeing Ranvir like this, Mahi began to tremble with fear, which Ranvir also felt. He tried his best to calm down. But whenever he remembered holding Mahi's waist without teeth, his anger increased even more than before. He held Mahi's hand and dragged her to the washroom. And he put her under the shower and turned on the shower. Mahi started trying to go from there again and again. So Ranvir said in a cold voice, "Don't move. Otherwise, it will not be good for you." Hearing Ranvir's warning, Mahi did not dare to go from there. Now her eyes were teary due to fear. And she kept her head down. Ranvir had removed his dupatta. And now he started rubbing his waist with his hands, as if he was erasing the feeling of touching Vedanta from Mahi's waist. He was rubbing his waist so hard that Mahi's fair skin was completely red. Mahi was also in pain. And she was now shivering. But Ranvir could not see anything in front of his anger. In all this, Ranvir himself got wet. He took off his coat. Now he was in a black pant and a white shirt. He had folded the sleeves of his shirt. His shirt was completely wet, so his muscular body was visible. When he was well satisfied that Mahi's waist is now clean, he closed the shower. Mahi was now shivering with cold. But she was still bowing her head, because she was not daring to look at Ranvir. Ranvir's anger had also reduced to a large extent. He had noticed Mahi's condition. Mahi was still shivering. Her little innocent face was red because of crying. Ranvir hugged Mahi in his arms and hugged her from his chest. As soon as he touched Ranvir's chest, Mahi started crying harder. She cried like a child and said, "You always take out all your anger on me. What did I do that you punished me?" Ranvir realized that he had been a little too strict with Mahi. But Mahi was not at fault. So he shook Mahi's head and said, "Calm down. You didn't do anything. I'm sorry." Saying this, Ranvir took Mahi's little face in his arms and started kissing her. Mahi also did not take Ranvir away from herself today. Then she slowly said to Ranvir, "Ranvir, please stop." Today, for the first time, Mahi called Ranvir by his name. Hearing this, Ranvir stopped for a moment and then slowly kissed Mahi's forehead and said, "I'm out. You change and come out." Saying this, Ranvir went out of the washroom. Mahi stood there and felt Ranvir's presence for a long time. Her heart was beating very fast at this time. But her eyes were still crying. Then Ranvir came back to the washroom. Seeing Ranvir there again, Mahi got scared and went to the corner and stood up. Seeing his condition, Ranvir tried to calm him down and said, "I came to give you your clothes." Saying this, he gave Mahi his clothes and went to change in his room. After a while, when Mahi came out of the washroom after changing, he saw Ranvir sitting on the sofa. He was busy on his phone. Mahi looked at him and said, "You haven't gone yet. Please go to your room. I want to sleep." Hearing Mahi's voice, Ranvir lifted his head and looked at Mahi. And he stood up and started going to her. Seeing Ranvir coming closer, Mahi started going backwards. Ranvir's face was expressionless. While Mahi was walking backwards, she got stuck to the wall and stood up. Ranvir was also very close to her. He kept looking into Mahi's eyes for a while. Because of crying for a long time, Mahi's eyes were a little swollen. But Mahi's eyes were very beautiful. Ranvir quickly picked up Mahi in his arms. Then Mahi started shivering to get off his lap. And she hit him on his shoulder and said, "Get me down." Hearing this, Ranvir warned Mahi and said, "If you say another word now, I'll throw you off the balcony." Hearing this, Mahi suddenly became quiet. On the other hand, seeing Mahi afraid of this joke, Ranvir was laughing his heart out. But he didn't let her come to his face. Ranvir laid Mahi on the bed and lay down next to her. Mahi was blinking her eyes as if she wanted to say something. Ranvir said, "What happened?" But Mahi still didn't say anything and blinked her eyes to indicate something. Ranvir got irritated and stared at her. So Mahi had to speak. You said that if I speak, you will throw me off the balcony. Hearing Mahi's words, Ranvir laughed loudly. And he laughed and said, "Oh Mahi, you are really so cute." Then he pulled her close and said, "I won't throw you. Now tell me, what do you want to say?" Mahi said, "I was saying that you can't sleep here with me. Because this is not right." Mahi said this very innocently. Ranvir stared at her and said, "Why is it not right? And anyway, what Ranvir Roy Kapoor does is right." Then he hugged Mahi and said, "Now if you don't sleep, I will start the work that I left incomplete." Saying this, Ranvir came close to Mahi's ears and said in a seductive tone, "And I promise that this time I won't leave my work unfinished. And you won't be able to stop me?" Hearing Ranvir's words, Mahi quickly closed her eyes and said, "No, I am sleeping." Hearing this, a lovely smile came on Ranvir's lips. He kissed Mahi on the forehead and fell asleep in his arms. Ranvir, who used to consider Mahi only his passion, have you started changing his feelings for Mahi? Are there any feelings for Ranvir in Mahi's heart? To know more, keep listening to Oh Baby only on Love Pulse Diaries. At around 5 in the morning, Ranbir's phone rang. So Ranbir started tossing the phone on the bed with his hand. As soon as the phone came in his hand, he first switched off the alarm. Then he tried to get up. So he felt as if there was some weight on his body. He lifted his head and saw that Mahi was sleeping peacefully with her head on her chest. And Mahi was holding Ranbir's waist tightly with her hands. Ranbir was lost in Mahi's innocent face for a moment. Then he waved his hand in Mahi's hair. Mahi was sleeping as if she was sleeping holding her teddy bear. Ranbir smiled upon seeing this. He slowly separated Mahi from himself. And put a pillow on her and put her to sleep. Then he covered her with a blanket and kept looking at Mahi's face for a while. Mahi was looking very beautiful while sleeping. Her face was as innocent as a baby. Ranbir caressed her cheeks with his fingers and then slowly said, "Mahi, you are really very beautiful. You are absolutely pure. I can't control myself when I see you. That's why I want you to always be with me. You are so innocent that I always want to keep you safe from everyone's eyes." Then he slowly kissed Mahi's lips and got up from there. After a while, Mahi woke up and she got up holding her teddy bear. That's when she remembered that Ranbir was in this room yesterday. But when she looked around, she couldn't see anyone. Then she took a deep breath and said, "Ranbir is not here anymore." After thinking so much, she got up quickly and went to the washroom. Today, turmeric and henna ceremony was going to take place. And the turmeric program was in the day, so everyone was busy preparing turmeric. Everyone had to wear yellow clothes according to the theme of the function. Mahi also wore a yellow suit and made a ponytail of her long hair, which was placed on the front side. Today she was looking like a Punjabi girl. At the same time, Sarika wore a yellow lehenga and wore flower jewelry. She was looking very beautiful in this. Rudra also wore a yellow kurta and white pajama according to the theme. And a yellow jacket was put on the kurta. In this, Rudra was looking very dashing. At the same time, Ranbir also wore a yellow mustard kurta pajama. And a dark blue jacket was put on it. He was looking very handsome as usual. By the way, the function of the girl and the boy had to be at the same place. But instead of the girl and the boy sitting, a partition was made with a curtain. In a while, the turmeric program started. First of all, turmeric was applied to Rudra. And then Sarika was applied to the pot of the same turmeric. The atmosphere there was very happy. This ritual was celebrated with dance music. And the girls started applying turmeric to each other. Mahi and Ruhi also started playing Holi with turmeric. Ruhi was running after Mahi to apply turmeric to her, while Mahi was running to save her. And she was looking back at Ruhi again and again. Ranbir's eyes were also going to Mahi again and again. Mahi, who was mischievous with him, was looking very cute. Then Ranbir's phone rang. So he went a little side and started talking on the phone. Mahi and Ruhi were also on the same side. And because of the curtain, Mahi could not see Ranbir. Then Mahi came and collided with Ranbir. Before Mahi fell, Ranbir held Mahi in his arms. Mahi closed her eyes in fear. When she felt that she has not fallen, she opened her eyes. Her eyes were fixed on Ranbir's chest. She lifted her head and looked at Ranbir. Then Ranbir was looking at her with a sad smile. The turmeric on Mahi's hands was also applied to Ranbir's kurta. Because Mahi's hands were on Ranbir's chest. Mahi said slowly, "Sorry." Ranbir asked, "Why?" "Why sorry?" Mahi got a little embarrassed and said, "The turmeric on my hands ruined your clothes." When Ranbir looked at his clothes, turmeric was really applied to his kurta. Then he looked at Mahi, who was standing with her eyes down. Ranbir brought Mahi closer to him and applied the turmeric on both his cheeks. Then he came close to Mahi's face and touched his cheeks on Mahi's cheeks. When Ranbir's cheeks touched Mahi's cheeks, Mahi's eyes were closed with shame. When Ranbir looked away from her, he was blushing with shame. Seeing this, Ranbir smiled. He left Mahi like this and went away. When Mahi slowly opened her eyes, Ranbir was not there. Seeing this, she said to herself, "What had happened to me?" Then she tapped her own head and said, then she tapped her own head and left. Here Ranbir had come to change in his room. Because his pa had made an important call from the office. And now he had to go and handle the problem himself. Ranbir went to the washroom and saw himself in the mirror. So seeing the turmeric on his kurta and cheeks, he could not stop himself from smiling. For a while, he got angry at Mahi's feelings. Then he remembered that he had to go to the office. So he took a shower quickly and got ready wearing formal clothes. He messaged Rudra and told him that he was going to the office. Ranbir was very serious about his work. And he did not compromise about his business. After a while, Mahi was going to her room for some work. Then she heard the sound of someone's footsteps. Hearing this sound, she stopped. She listened to that sound carefully and moved towards the direction from where the sound came. When she reached there, she saw that Vedant was trying to tie a bandage on his hand. And his hand is injured. Mahi quickly went to him and said, "Vedant ji, how did you get hurt?" When Vedant heard someone's voice, he raised his head and looked in front. Seeing Mahi's lovely face, for a moment Vedant forgot his injury and the pain caused by it. When Vedant did not respond, Mahi again asked him, "Vedant ji, I am asking you something. Tell me, how did you get hurt?" Vedant came to his senses when Mahi asked him again. And he said, "It's nothing, just a scratch. It's just a little wound. I was just trying to bandage it." Mahi was able to see that Vedant was not able to bandage it properly. So she said, "Give it to me, I will bandage your wound." Hearing this, Vedant refused. But when Mahi asked him again and again, he extended his hand towards Mahi. Mahi first opened the bandage and saw that the wound was very deep. She said to Vedant, "You are saying that it is a small wound, but it is very deep. You must be in a lot of pain." Vedant could not help but smile at Mahi's care. Mahi applied medicine on the wound and said, "You know, I can carry the whole house on my head with a small wound." Hearing Mahi's words, Vedant smiled. Mahi also bandaged the wound, and then stood up and said, "Okay, now I am leaving. And yes, your wound is very deep, so please consult a doctor once. Because my father says that the wound should be treated on time. Otherwise, it becomes incurable one day." Mahi said this while acting like her father. Vedant was laughing at her behavior. But he had kept his face expression normal. Then he asked, "Mahi, you love your father a lot, don't you?" Mahi said, "Of course, I love my father a lot. And my father also loves me a lot." Then Mahi remembered that she was going to her room for some work. As soon as she remembered this, she tapped her head and said, "Oh, I had work. Okay, now I am leaving. Take care of yourself." Saying this, Mahi left quickly. Vedant also nodded his head while smiling at Mahi's words. and said in his mind, "This girl is not at all what I was thinking. In fact, she is very innocent. And very cute too." Thinking this, a smile came on Vedant's face. Then Vedant took a deep breath and said to himself, "It's small, but it's very deep. If some wounds are not treated on time, then they become incurable." Then he thought something, shook his head, and left from there. Ranvir was in his cabin at this time, getting angry at his pa. "I don't understand, when you can't handle work in my absence for a few days, then why do you take salary?" Ranvir's pa, Avinash, said with his head bowed. "But sir, he just wanted to discuss this deal with you." Ranvir looked at Avinash, then, getting up from the chair, he went out of his car and cabin. As soon as he left Ranvir's cabin, Avinash breathed a sigh of relief. He felt like he was not able to breathe for a long time due to fear. He thanked God with all his heart and said, "God, you saved me. I will come to the temple to worship tomorrow." On the other side, the Mehendi function had started at 6 p.m. According to the theme of the function, everyone was wearing a green dress. Gents were not allowed in today's function. And like all the functions, there was a lot of fun in this function. Dance, songs, fun, everything was there in this function. Sarika's mehendi was looking very beautiful. After all, this was the mehendi of the bride's hands. They say, you can apply mehendi whenever you want, but the color of the bride's mehendi cannot be of anyone else's mehendi. Ranvir had thought that he would leave the office very soon and reach the resort on time. But it was too late for him to leave the office. It was 10 o'clock at night when he reached the resort. The program of mehendi was almost over. Ranvir came in by turning the key of his car on his fingers. And as soon as he went up the stairs to go to his room, his eyes stopped in front of him. After all, what did Ranvir see that his eyes stopped? Is Vedant really the same as he shows himself? What nonsense was Vedant talking? To know more, keep listening to Oh Baby only on Lovebirds Diaries. As soon as Ranvir went to his room, he stopped to see Mahi. Mahi was wearing a green sari with henna on her hands. She was only focused on her hands. Her hair was open and some of her curls were coming on her face to enhance her beauty. Seeing Mahi's perfect figure in the sari, Ranvir's heartbeat increased. Today he saw Mahi for the first time in a sari. He felt as if his throat was drying up. He thought to himself, "Oh, this girl is driving me crazy day by day." While Mahi was coming down the stairs in her own tune, she didn't even realize that someone's intense gaze was on her. As Mahi came down the stairs, as soon as she started leaving Ranvir's side, Ranvir grabbed her arm and pulled her closer to himself. When Mahi realized that someone has grabbed her arm and pulled her, she raised her head and looked at that person. Her eyes met Ranvir's eyes. Ranvir had a different desire for Mahi in his eyes. Mahi was a little nervous at first. She thought that Ranvir was staring at her angrily. Then she asked with a little courage, "What did I do now that you are looking at me like this?" Ranvir thought that Mahi was scared of him. But she told him to annoy him. "Let me tell you what you have done now." Saying this, he came close to Mahi's ear and said, "But not here, somewhere else." Saying this, he picked up Mahi in his lap. Mahi couldn't get her away from herself, because she was wearing henna on her hands. But she was definitely telling Ranvir to leave her. She whispered to Ranvir, "Ranvir, put me down. Look, you can't do this every time." But Ranvir was not responding to her words. He took her to his room and closed the door with his feet. Ranvir looked at Mahi's face, who was staring at him. She had a little anger in her eyes. Mahi threatened Ranvir and said, "If you don't leave me, then see, no one will be worse than me." Hearing Mahi's threat, Ranvir laughed loudly. Because she was looking very cute while threatening. Ranvir laughed and said, "Really? What will you do?" Even after saying this, he didn't put Mahi down. When Mahi felt that her threat was not making any difference to Ranvir, she made a puppy face and said, "Put me down, please." Ranvir was also in a good mood to trouble Mahi today. He said, "Okay, I'll put you down. First to that work, which you ran away without completing that day. Mahi asked in confusion, which work? Reminding Ranvir, he said, did you want to kiss me? Mahi said, okay, but put me down, only then I will kiss you. Mahi said, once you put me down, I will run away, without kissing them. Mahi was happy to make a plan, but she didn't know that the one standing in front of her is Ranvir Roy Kapoor, who understood from Mahi's face expression what was going on in Mahi's little mind. Still, he put Mahi down. As soon as Ranvir put her down, Mahi ran towards the door. But the door was locked, and Mahi's henna was not dry yet. Mahi thought to herself, the whole plan flopped. She slowly turned and looked at Ranvir, who was sitting on the sofa like a king, and was looking at her. Ranvir asked her, what happened? Didn't you go out? By the way, if you didn't have henna on your hands, you wouldn't have been able to open the door. Saying this, Ranvir had a winning smile on his lips, while Mahi was bowing her head. Then Ranvir said in his heavy voice, giving her an order, come to me. But Mahi was still bowing her head. She was afraid to go to Ranvir. Ranvir then said in his cold voice, will you come to me or should I come to you? Because if you come to me, then you might get a little less punishment. But if I come to you, you can't resist me. Hearing this, Mahi had a runny nose. She was in such a state at the time that she could not go out and she did not have the courage to go to Ranvir. Mahi could have opened the door without worrying about her henna. But Ranvir had closed the door with the remote and his remote control was with Ranvir. Then Ranvir said again, Mahi, do I have to repeat it again? He had a little anger in his voice. Mahi looked at him with fear. She was staring at him with her cold eyes. Mahi again lowered her eyes and slowly started going towards Ranvir. As soon as she reached close to Ranvir, Ranvir immediately grabbed her hand and pulled her towards him. Due to the sudden pull, Mahi almost hugged Ranvir. As soon as Mahi started moving away from there, Ranvir grabbed her tightly, due to which Mahi remained attached to his chest. Still, he did not stop struggling. Ranvir whispered in his ear in his magnetic voice, baby, why are you wasting your energy? Why, you know very well that you cannot go away from me unless I want you to. Mahi was also tired of struggling. She understood that she could do nothing in front of Ranvir's power. When Ranvir saw that Mahi had stopped trying to get rid of him, he made Mahi's face in front of him. Mahi was still looking down and some of his hair were coming on his small face. As Ranvir was so close, Mahi's face turned pink out of shame. Ranvir pulled his hair from his fingers behind his ears and started stroking his cheeks with his thumb. But in a seductive tone, he said, come on, kiss me. While saying this, there was no expression on Ranvir's face. But there was something in his voice, due to which Mahi's heartbeat increased suddenly, and due to fear, she started biting her lips. Ranvir's eyes were on Mahi's lips. After seeing this, Ranvir's lips smiled. He smiled and said, by the way, you always run away from me, but you never miss a chance to seduce me. After saying this, he grabbed Mahi's hair from behind and put his lips on her soft lips. Mahi, who was sitting with her eyes down, was shocked by Ranvir's action and was surprised that his eyes grew bigger. Ranvir kissed Mahi on the sofa and himself bent down on her. Mahi was trying to push him away by placing both her hands on his chest. Now she was not even worried about her henna. She was trying her best to get rid of Ranvir's grip. But Ranvir was very strong. Ranvir was also biting her while her hands were on Mahi's delicate waist. Now tears were coming from Mahi's eyes because she could not get Ranvir away from her. Mahi was taking long breaths. Her whole face was red. But Ranvir did not care about it. He was not even thinking about what was happening to Mahi. He just wanted to do what he wanted. His passion for Mahi was crossing all limits. Mahi was trying her best to get rid of Ranvir's grip. She cried out that he was hurting her. After hearing her, Ranvir looked at her face. Mahi's eyes were red because of crying and there were also bite marks on her lips. Mahi had a pain and slight anger in her eyes. Seeing this, Ranvir got up from her. When Mahi saw that Ranvir got away from her, she also got up from the sofa and told Ranvir to open the door. I have to go. There was no expression on Ranvir's face. But his eyes were on Mahi. He took out the remote from his pocket and unlocked the door. During this time, he did not take his eyes off Mahi's face. As soon as Mahi felt that the door was unlocked, she turned around to go. Hearing Ranvir's cold voice, Mahi stopped where she was. Ranvir said, "How long will you run away from me, Mahi? One day, you have to be mine forever. You will always be with me as mine, and very soon, I will take care of you completely." There was a passion in his voice, a stubbornness, which Mahi also felt. After hearing Ranvir's words, Mahi went inside. She turned around and saw Ranvir. Mahi could clearly see the passion in his eyes. Mahi courageously said to Ranvir, "You can't keep us with you, nor can you make us yours." Her voice was trembling. Hearing Mahi's words, Ranvir's face was filled with a satanic laugh. Both his hands were in his pocket at that time. He bowed to Mahi's face and said, "Ranvir Roy, nothing is difficult for Kapoor. Whatever I wanted, I got it. Whether it is someone's will or not, then you are my passion. Then you have to be only mine. And for this, I can cross all limits." Mahi was very scared of Ranvir. And even Ranvir could see this fear in his eyes. Mahi quickly left the room. Then Ranvir said, "Baby, you are Ranvir Roy Kapoor's choice. Just a little more time. Then you will be mine forever." Saying this, he was no less than a devil. Mahi was running out of the room when she bumped into someone. Before she fell, someone grabbed her. When Mahi realized that she had not fallen, she looked at the person who was still holding her. It was Vedant. Vedant saw Mahi hesitating, so he stood up and said, "Mahi, are you okay?" Mahi shook her head and said yes. Her tongue was saying something and her face was something else. Vedant also noticed this. Then he looked at Mahi's neck where a clear mark of a bite was visible. Seeing him, Vedant did not take long to understand what had happened to him and who had done this. He looked angrily at Ranvir's room. Then he said, "Ranvir, what have you done?" "You." Vedant was able to think something else when Mahi said, "Vedant, we have to go to our room." Mahi bowed her head and said this. After hearing this, Vedant nodded his head and moved away from his way. Mahi went to her room. When she reached her room, she quickly closed the door and started crying loudly. She had been controlling herself for a long time. She said while crying, "Please leave me alone. Why do you hurt me?" For a long time, Mahi kept crying like this. While crying, she did not know when she fell asleep. Knowing that Ranvir has done this to Mahi, what will Vedant do? Is Mahi like his other girlfriends for Ranvir? If he loves Mahi, why does he hurt her? Will Ranvir's passion ever change in love? To know more, keep listening to Oh Baby only on Love Pulse Diaries. Mahi woke up at around 7 in the morning. She was still lying on the floor. She started remembering what happened last night. She sat down holding her head. She was in a lot of pain. Then she got up and went to the washroom. When she looked at herself in the mirror, her eyes were swollen. The marks of bites on her lips, neck and waist were now blue. Mahi said to herself, "No Mahi, you can't get so weak. You can't get so weak. And anyway, today is Sarika's wedding. Today is a very big day for Sarika. If you go in front of her with such a face, then her mood will be ruined. And today she doesn't want to be sad at all." Thinking this, she splashed water on her face. After a while, she took a bath and came out of the washroom. She wore a full-sleeve anarkali suit, which hid the marks of bites on her body. She was thinking in her mind that as long as she is here, she will not go in front of Ranbir at all. The evening preparations were in full swing. All the servants were running to get ready for the decorations and the rest. While Ranbir was in Rudra's room at that time, Rudra said to him, "Wow, Just today's day and then Sarika and I will be one forever. Rudra was speaking in his own excitement. But Ranbir was not interested in any of his words. He was looking at his phone and said, he is not married yet. Then he is roaming around like a Romeo. When it happens, he will definitely roam around as a slave of his wife. That too of the first class. Thinking this, he shook his head and turned his focus towards the phone. When Rudra saw that Ranbir was not paying attention to what he was saying, then he said while making a face, "What, Ranbir? Aren't you happy about my marriage? You are sitting as if you have come to a distant relative's wedding." Hearing this, Ranbir looked at Rudra. Then Rudra thought it was right to change the topic. Because he understood Ranbir's reaction very well. Rudra asked, "Okay, forget all that. Tell me, when are you getting married? After all, we are of the same age." Ranbir looked at his phone again and said, "Is it necessary to get married? And you enjoy your marriage, don't worry about me." Rudra looked at Ranbir carefully and said, "No, I felt that you are serious about Mahi. So maybe in some time, you will also feel like getting married." Then he thought about it and said, "By the way, don't you think that her age is too young for marriage?" Ranbir looked at Rudra and said, "Do you want me to send you abroad for work on the second day of marriage? Because of which the dreams of your wedding night that you have kept are incomplete." Hearing this, Rudra laughed and said, "I was just asking, why do you get so serious about everything?" Then Rudra said, "I don't want to get married and I am busy playing my wedding night band." After saying this, he turned his face and looked at Ranbir, who was still on the phone carefree. Mahi was sitting with him in Sarika's room at that time. Sarika could see the sadness on her face very well. Sarika asked the reason for her sadness. "What happened, Mahi? Why is your face sad?" Mahi looked at Sarika with her eyes. She had tears in her eyes. Seeing Mahi's tears, Sarika asked her with her hand on her cheek. "What happened, child? Why are you crying?" Mahi didn't want to tell Sarika about Ranbir. She didn't want Sarika to be upset on her wedding day. She said, "Sister, you will leave tomorrow. Then I will miss you a lot." "Sister, why do girls have to leave after marriage? Isn't it possible that brother Rudra will come and live with us? You won't go away from us because of this." Mahi didn't say the right thing, but it was also true that she was saddened by the fact that she had to go to Sarika's in-laws' house. Sarika laughed hearing Mahi's last words. She hugged Mahi and said, "Child, you and I are going to live in the same city. You can come to me whenever you want." Hearing this, Mahi said, "Sister, you are right that we are in the same city. But I won't come to your house. Because that monster Ranbir will also be there. And now I don't want to come in front of him." Then Mahi changed her words and said, "Sister, I will stay with you all day today. I will quickly get my dress from my room. I will get ready with you in the evening." Sarika smiled and said yes. Then Mahi quickly ran towards her room. She quickly took her dress and other necessary things and started walking towards Sarika's room. Somewhere she was afraid that she might face Ranbir. She had just reached Sarika's room when she saw Ranbir at a distance. He was talking to someone on the phone at that time. And his hand was stuck on the railing. Mahi froze when she saw Ranbir. She stopped where she was. She remembered what happened yesterday. Then Ranbir turned towards Mahi. And his eyes met with the eyes of Mahi, who was terrified. Ranbir's face was completely expressionless. As soon as he took one step towards Mahi, Mahi entered Sarika's room without delay. And closed the door of the room. Ranbir shook his head with a sad smile and went ahead. Mahi was taking long breaths in the room. Because she came in running. And she was breathing heavily due to some anxiety. Sarika was in the washroom. If she had seen Mahi like this, she would have asked her 1,000 questions. Mahi quickly drank water and normalized herself. Then her mind said, "I will not let Ranbir come to me in any condition. Just today. And then I will be at my home from tomorrow. then there is no chance of meeting him. Just a few hours passed. A makeup artist had come to prepare Sarika. Mahi was also going to be prepared by the same makeup artist. Sarika wore a mustard and maroon designer lehenga. This lehenga was made by India's #1 fashion designer, which was giving a royal look. In about 2 hours, Sarika's makeup was complete. Her beauty, designer lehenga, and some of that makeup artist's wonder. That Sarika was looking exactly like a princess. Mahi also went to the washroom and changed her dress. She wore a light pistachio-colored lehenga, which was shining on her gentleness and her beauty. For a while, the makeup artist also kept looking at her. Then she smiled and said, "Ma'am, this color suits you a lot. Or you can say that this lehenga is made for you." After hearing the makeup artist, Sarika and Mahi both smiled. The makeup artist started doing Mahi's makeup. She had kept Mahi's makeup very light, because she looked very beautiful naturally. That's why even a heartless person like Ranvir couldn't escape it. In a while, Mahi was also ready. The mandap was ready. All the decorations and management was done by India's biggest event management company. In a while, Rudra came down with Ranvir. Rudra was no less than a prince today. There, Ranvir was in a black-colored Jodhpuri suit in a killer look as always. As always, the girls were imagining their future husbands in it. Rudra was waiting for his bride Sarika on the stage. And the one waiting for him was soon finished. When he saw Sarika coming with Mahi and Nirmala, Rudra lost his senses when he saw Sarika. But when he saw Mahi coming with her, Ranvir felt his heartbeats increasing. Sarika looked at Rudra. She was seeing a lot of love in Rudra's eyes. Seeing this, a lovely smile came on Sarika's face. As soon as Mahi saw her, her eyes met with Ranvir's eyes. One look was enough to see him. Mahi quickly lowered her eyes. Sarika stood near Rudra on the stage. Ranvir was standing next to her. Mahi quickly left Sarika on the stage and stood near Nirmala. She didn't look at Ranvir even once. Ranvir was noticing that Mahi was intentionally ignoring him. That's why his hands were stiff. But he kept a normal expression on his face. That's why no one could tell him how angry he was at that moment. Soon, the wedding procession started. Everyone clicked pictures with the bride and groom. After some time, both of them were seated in the wedding hall. The priest started chanting mantras. The wedding procession started. Soon, the bride and groom were made to stand for the circumambulations. With the chanting of mantras, they started taking rounds. With each round, they were becoming a strong thread of 7 words. This is a very emotional moment for the parents. Mahesh ji and Nirmala ji were also very emotional. When the priest called Sarika's parents for the circumambulations and asked them to perform the circumambulations, Mahesh ji and Nirmala ji's eyes were wet while performing the circumambulations. Mahi was watching all this and she said to her father, "Father, you will never separate me from you, right?" Hearing this, Gangadhar ji's eyes were wet. He said to Mahi, "Child, a prince will come for you and he will take you with him. He will always keep you happy." Mahi held her father's hand tightly and said, "If a prince comes to take me, then I will tell him that I will not leave my father and go anywhere." Hearing Gangadhar ji's innocence, Gangadhar ji fell in love with Mahi. He kissed Mahi's hand with love. Mahi held his hand with love. After the circumambulations, the priest performed the circumambulations. Rudra filled gold coins in Sarika's forehead. Sarika closed her eyes and enjoyed the moment. This moment is the most beautiful moment of a girl's life. It is very difficult to express it in words. Then Rudra put the nuptial chain around Sarika's neck on the priest's request. The priest said, "The marriage is complete. Now you both are husband and wife." Everyone's face was glowing. Sarika and Rudra were looking at each other with love. Rudra came to Sarika's ear and said, "Congratulations Mrs. Sarika Rudra Roy Kapoor." Sarika smiled and said, "Same to you hubby." With this, the wedding program was completed. Sarika and Rudra were taken to their room to rest. Everyone went to their rooms to rest. Because tomorrow morning everyone had to go to Kapoor mansion. The rest of the rituals had to be completed there. What punishment will Ranbir give Mahi to ignore him? Will Mahi be able to keep Ranbir away from herself? Who will save Mahi from Ranbir? To know more, keep listening to Oh Baby only on Love Pulse Diaries. It was very difficult for Rudra to get out of the house tonight. He was drinking with Ranvir in his room. Today, his happiness was growing as soon as he saw him. At the same time, Ranvir was remembering Mahi ignoring him again and again, because of which his hands were tightening on the glass. At the same time, Rudra was speaking in his own tone. Oh man, now she is my wife. So, why have you separated us now? You should have let us stay in the same room. Ranvir said without any expression. Yes, so who has stopped you? Go to his room. Rudra said while making a face. I can't go. Mom has strictly forbidden that we have to live in separate rooms. And Mahi is also with Sarika in her room. So, there is no chance of meeting. If Mahi goes to meet him, she will beat him in front of everyone. That Rudra brother-in-law came to sister's room at night. Do you remember what he did last time? I convinced Sarika with great difficulty. Saying this, he started drinking. As soon as he heard Mahi's name, a clever smile came on Ranvir's face. He finished the drink in one breath and said to Rudra, wait a minute, I just come. Saying this, he went out. He came straight to the garden and stood under Sarika's room and dialed a number from his phone. Here, Mahi was sleeping after hugging Sarika. Mahi was wearing a light red color patiala suit at that time. While sleeping at that time, there was a lot of peace on her face. Then his phone started ringing. In 2 to 3 rings, he woke up. Sarika was in deep sleep due to being very tired. That's why she didn't care about the ring of the phone. Mahi received her phone in her sleep and said, hello. Ranvir said in his magnetic voice from the other side, hello dear, how can you sleep peacefully after waking me up? On hearing Ranvir's voice from the other side, Mahi got up suddenly and sat down. And asked in surprise, you? How did you get my number? Ranvir said, speak softly, Sarika is also sleeping with you. She will wake up. Mahi looked towards Sarika, who was sleeping in deep sleep. With the help of his voice, Sarika didn't get disturbed. That's why she got up slowly and opened the balcony gate and came out. And stood in front of the railing and said, now tell me, how did you get my number? Ranvir was standing downstairs in front of that balcony. And he was looking at Mahi. In the moonlight, Mahi was looking like a devil in a light red suit. But Mahi hadn't seen Ranvir yet. Ranvir looked at her and said, do you think it's a big deal for me to get your number? Suddenly, Mahi's eyes met Ranvir's eyes standing downstairs. Seeing this, Ranvir got a bitter smile on his face. He winked one eye while looking at Mahi. Mahi was shocked to see this. Then she said angrily on the phone, you won't be able to escape your actions, right? Ranvir said while teasing her, no, because I am like this, I only do what I want to do. Then Ranvir gave her an order and said, now come down quickly. Mahi said while making a face, yes, as you say and I will come down. Ranvir gave her a small threat and said, okay, so you want me to come up and pick you up in my arms in front of Sarika? Mahi said in fear, you can't do this. Ranvir said, I can do this. Now you won't come down till I count to 10, so I'm coming up myself. So come fast. Saying this, she disconnected the phone. Then she messaged Rudra too. As soon as Mahi heard Ranvir's threat, she quickly put her dupatta around her neck and came down running. As she came running, she was suffocating. And she was angrily looking at Ranvir, who was looking at her with a devil smile. Mahi said angrily, now tell me, why did you call me? Seeing Mahi so angry, Ranvir smiled and slowly started getting closer to her. At this time, both her hands were in her pocket. She was wearing a navy blue tight-fitting t-shirt and grey trouser. Due to the fitting of the t-shirt, her strong muscles were clearly visible, which showed her strength. Seeing Ranvir coming close to her, Mahi said while going back, "Look, you talk to me from a distance. You can't come close to me every time." Hearing this, Ranvir said with his eyebrows raised, "So, can you stop me?" Mahi knew from within that it was not in her power to stop Ranvir. But still, she didn't let this matter come to her face. She said, "If you want to talk, then do it from a distance, otherwise, I am leaving." Saying this, she turned to leave. Then Ranvir held her hand and pulled her closer to him. Mahi went straight from her lap. One hand of Ranvir was on his waist, and the other hand was on his back. And he was holding Mahi tightly. Mahi couldn't move even if she wanted to. She was repeatedly pushing Ranvir with both her hands on his chest. But how dare she? Ranvir didn't care at all. While struggling, Mahi said, "Leave me, I am having trouble breathing." She was really having trouble breathing. Because Ranvir was holding her tightly. Ranvir said, "Okay, I will let you go. But quietly come with me like a good boy." Mahi said with her eyes wide open, "What? I am not going anywhere with you." Hearing this, Ranvir said, "Okay, then stay like this for the whole night." Saying this, Ranvir tightened his grip even more. Mahi said with a cough, "Leave me, I am in pain." Because of not being able to breathe, Mahi's face turned completely red. She said quickly, "Okay, I will come with you." As soon as she said this, Ranvir left her quickly. Mahi was now normalizing herself with a long breath. Ranvir held her hand and pulled her close to his car. He opened the door of the front seat of the car and made her sit on the seat. And he himself came and sat on the driving seat on the other side. Before he started the car, he looked at Mahi, who was looking at the other side with her mouth open. Ranvir slowly started leaning towards her, which even Mahi realized. She closed her eyes in fear. When Ranvir looked at her like this, a smile appeared on her face. She put the seat belt on Mahi's side. Meanwhile, her lips were very close to Mahi's neck. She deliberately left a deep breath on Mahi's neck, which caused a wave in Mahi's body. And she clenched her fists and closed them. Seeing Mahi do this, Ranvir's lips smiled even deeper. She bit Mahi's neck, which gave Mahi a sigh. She looked angrily at Ranvir. So Ranvir got away from her with a sad smile and started driving the car. Mahi turned her face back to the other side. Here at the resort, Rudra got Ranvir's message. "Your way is clear. Now you can go to Sarika's room." After reading Ranvir's message, Rudra left his room without delay and reached Sarika's room from the balcony. Rudra sat next to Sarika and looked at his new bride for a while. Today, Sarika's face looked like a blooming rose. Her handkerchief, henna, and on her forehead was a vermilion named Rudra. Today, Sarika looked more beautiful than the other days. He sat next to Sarika. He gently stroked her cheeks. Then he slowly bent down towards Sarika's face. Before he could kiss her lips, Sarika woke up. The room was dim at that time, so she couldn't recognize Rudra. But before she could scream, Rudra put his hand on her face. Sarika opened her eyes and started looking at him. Rudra said slowly, "Sarika, I am your husband, Rudra. Now look, I am removing my hand, you don't scream." Sarika also blinked and said yes. Then Rudra slowly removed his hand. Sarika said slowly, "What are you doing here? And where is Mahi?" Rudra said lying next to her, "She has gone to her room. And now don't ask too many questions." Saying this, he grabbed Sarika by the waist and brought her close to him. Before Sarika asked anything else, Rudra started kissing her lips. Sarika also got lost in his kiss. And his hands started to stroke Rudra's hair. After about 20 minutes of kiss, both started to separate and take long breaths. For Sarika too, it was difficult to control herself by coming close to Rudra. But still, he said while removing Rudra, Rudra, please control yourself today. All our rituals have not been completed yet. Rudra was not in the mood to leave Sarika at all. He came to Sarika and said, Darling, don't stop now. I can't control anymore. After listening to him, Sarika requested and said, Rudra, please. Rudra looked at Sarika's face. So there were expressions on his face requesting. He took a deep breath and kissed Sarika's forehead. Then he filled her in his arms and laid next to her. Sarika also slept peacefully in Rudra's arms. Here, Ranvir's car was running at full speed on a deserted road. Mahi got irritated and asked, Where are you taking me? Ranvir did not answer him. In a while, he stopped his car at a deserted place. Mahi was scared to see that place. It was completely dark outside. Only the moonlight was spreading a little light there. That place was very scary to see. She asked Ranvir, Where are you taking me? Take me back. Ranvir said, No, I am going to stay here tonight. If you want to go, you can go. Saying this, he adjusted his seat and lay down relaxed. Mahi said in a loud voice, How can I go out? It is very dark outside. And I am afraid of the dark. Just like today, Ranvir had thought of disturbing Mahi completely. He looked at Mahi and said, Don't be afraid. There are some people outside who will help you. To show you the way. Mahi looked out of the window and said, But I can't see anyone. Ranvir put his hands behind his head and relaxed and said, How will you see? All those wandering souls. Mahi's eyes widened with fear. She said in a trembling voice, Souls means ghosts. Ranvir said, Souls means ghosts. Some time ago, 4 boys were murdered here. So now their souls keep wandering here. And she doesn't do much to people. But she doesn't leave beautiful girls at all. Saying this, he started leaning towards Mahi. In the meantime, he adjusted Mahi's seat. Because of which Mahi also lay down. But he was focused on Ranvir's words. So he didn't even know when Ranvir adjusted his seat. Hearing Ranvir's words, sweating spots began to appear on Mahi's face due to fear. And Ranvir was able to see fear clearly in his eyes. He was even laughing in his mind. Because Mahi was not able to understand his joke. But still, he didn't let it show on his face. Why has Ranvir brought Mahi to such a deserted place? Just to scare her, or does he have some other intention? To know more, keep listening to Oh Baby only on Love Pulse Diaries.